What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy, CamATL, and welcome back to another NFL video with your boy. Drop a like down below because I already know you're going to love it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment anything in the comments section to enter your name into the $50 giveaway I do every single week on this channel. Thank you guys for joining me as always. Sorry we haven't had the first look lineup videos for NFL, but I'll get back to the first look lineup video for week 14. But for this week, I'm just pretty much doing the final look breakdown. We're going to break down position by position, talk about pretty much everybody that we have some interest in and why. And then, send y'all on your merry way to go get that money. Greenlightdfs.com, join the squad. Let's get to it. So, first and foremost, my favorite quarterback on the slate, I'm going to sort point per salary. My favorite quarterback on the slate, there's multiple options here. But the guy that I've been siding with the most and that is very interesting to me is Trevor Lawrence at Detroit. Now, the Detroit matchup is fantastic. Not only over the full season has Detroit been by a mile the worst in the league versus quarterback. I mean, versus the past period. But the last 4 weeks, they've still been the worst. Like, they haven't made any improvements. The entire season consistently, they've just been horrible. At 5'9", for a guy going against the best matchup you can possibly ask for, with some decent options to pair him with as well, with a decent option to run back with, which I'll talk about in a minute. I really like this Jacksonville Detroit game. I think both sides are going to be able to move the ball. I think it could end up being high scoring, and I really like this spot here. Most games that Detroit plays ends up being high scoring affairs, and I definitely like Trevor Lawrence a ton here. Jared Goff is another guy that I really, really like. He's at home in this situation, and going against Jacksonville, who is not the most amazing secondary either. They're not the worst like the Lions are, but they're also not good. So you could go either side of this. Honestly, either way. I'm citing Trevor Lawrence because as of right now, they're underdogs playing catch up. And I just kind of like what I've landed on a little more that way. But Jared Goff's had a fantastic season, and do not sleep on Goff either. So I'm on Trevor Lawrence and Goff. I like both of them. I think both are in play. I think you shouldn't overthink it. Both these guys are fantastic plays. And it is what it is. Derek Carr's only 5'6", so he sticks out to me as a solid option. Even though Kenny Pickett pops for me point per dollar, I probably won't have a ton of him. The only reason maybe you can go Kenny Pickett is because I do like Fryermuth. So if you pair Kenny Pickett with Fryermuth and Deontay Johnson or something, then that's cool. And then run back on the Atlanta side with I don't even know, to be honest with you. But so I'm not gonna have a ton of Pickett. He's too close a price to Jared Goff for me to go Pickett. And then I'd rather just Trevor Lawrence as well for even, 700 more. I'd rather just find the money, honestly. The matchup's better for Lawrence, though, out of these group of guys. And like I said, the roster construction and the fluidity of it, the way it kind of balances and the correlation and all that is just beautiful with either Goff or Lawrence. So those have been my favorite options on the week. Mike White is an interesting option as well at the 5'4" range. Like, we have some really good 5K range quarterbacks this week that most of my builds have been around. So it's Mike White to me against Minnesota. It's Trevor Lawrence. It's Jared Goff as my favorite options. And then if you're spending up, it would be going ahead and just getting Patty Mahomes or getting Justin Herbert. These two guys are in fantastic spots. I do have to mention Jalen Hurts as well. Tennessee's secondary is dreadful. We know what Hurts can give you as a floor with his rushing ability, and then facing Tennessee, who also struggles against the pass. And Tennessee's a serviceable team that could possibly keep the game competitive. So, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Herbert, if you're spending up. If you're spending down, it's Lawrence. It's Jared Goff as my two favorite, and then you can consider Mike White as a sneaky option as well. There's some Jets receiver options that I'm interested in, but there's also a running back I'm interested in that we're going to get to in a minute that kind of brings White down a little bit because of the correlation aspect of things. I do like a running back here, but either way, that running back will get involved in the passing game as well. So Mike White will still be serviceable, and he's got guys you could stack with and also works in like GPP, nice correlated builds. So yeah, obviously Minnesota has guys like Justin Jefferson on the other side that you could run back with, but that's an expensive correlation. It's part of the reason I like the Jacksonville Detroit game so much is that you're able to get both sides of what should be a high scoring game, and good prices as well. All right. With that being said, that's it. All right. Run it back. Zonovan Knight is the lock of the week, especially if Michael Carter misses. He's been missing practices, so we're expecting as of right now that he's going to miss. Zonovan Knight came in once he left last game, had a very good game, got over 100 scrimmage yards, was very, very solid. I absolutely love this spot for him. Against the run, Minnesota's been struggling as well. Zonovan Knight's going to get involved in the pass game and on the ground. Jets do like to dump the ball off to their running back, so expect Zonovan to get that exposure in the pass game as well and give him a solid floor here against Minnesota. I think he's a lock. I think you don't need to overthink this situation here. You just do it. All right. Now, there's other fantastic matchups, but I do have some worries here. Dameon Pierce is popping for me for GPPs because the matchup is just A1. There hasn't been a better matchup than against Cleveland lately, against the run. All right, Dameon Pierce had huge games early on in the year, but lately he's been kind of down. That's a great time to hop on him. The problem is here is that this game's expected to be lopsided with Deshaun Watson coming back for Cleveland. So because they're going to be behind, it's the game script doesn't add up great for Pierce unless he does a ton of damage early or unless he gets super heavily involved in the pass game. But at 5'9", he can still hit value, and in GPPs, if he in fact is able to find those holes early and Houston's able to keep this game competitive, he could go off in this matchup against Cleveland, who's been dreadful versus running backs. All right, Josh Jacobs against the Chargers. We know how bad the Chargers are versus the run. Josh Jacobs just coming off like a 50-something performance. With that being said, I'm expecting Josh Jacobs to kind of have more of the 20 range, but that could be enough at this week. What I've realized so far on this slate is that there's not a ton of running backs that I absolutely love. You know what I mean? But there are some receivers that we'll talk about. A lot of good, solid receivers at that 5K range that I think have huge upside. But outside of Zonovan Knight, Josh Jacobs, Kenneth Walker is in play solely on the fact that the game script's going to be favoring him heavily. He's going to get easily over 20-something carries. It's not an ideal matchup against the Rams, but the game script is beautiful for Kenneth Walker. All right. Um, let's see. So outside of spending down for Zonovan Knight, maybe getting sneaky with a Dameon Pierce. The matchup's fantastic. Game script's not great. Paying up for Josh Jacobs. Playing Austin Eckler because in full point PPR DK, he's a fantastic option. I'm not going to have a ton of Travis Etienne based off the fact that Detroit has been solid versus the run, but struggle badly versus the pass. So I think the game plan for Jacksonville coming in is really to air it out on Detroit here. That's where everyone's having a ton of success. I don't know if they have a ton of success on the ground with Etienne, but he will get involved in the pass game. Outside of that, let's look at the spend up options that we have here. All right. So if we look at projection overall, I have Eckler, Jacobs at the very top. Christian McCaffrey is going to be in play. This should be a good game, which is what makes Christian McCaffrey interesting to me here. Because this game should be a competitive matchup, back and forth. Both teams, Miami is a high-powered offense that should be able to still score even though it's the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey obviously is a wide receiver 1 and running back 1. So he's a solid option if you want to spend up. Joe Mixon as long as Jamar Chase continues to miss. I believe he's coming back in limited fashion throughout practices this week, so maybe he's back and just severely limited this week, which still has Joe Mixon in play. Kansas City's not the best versus the run, and this game seems like a good game situation here. The game script's not great because, they are expected to lose and be behind majority of the time, but Joe Mixon should get those dump offs and stuff like that. Nick Chubb I want to talk about. Nick Chubb is 8K, but matchup against Houston is A1. They're big favorites. It just screams Nick Chubb to me here. Everybody's, Deshaun Watson coming back is going to open the run up even more because of his ability to really, move the ball. So Nick Chubb, like Deshaun Watson being back, they're going to get in the red zone even easier now, and Nick Chubb's going to pound these touchdowns in. He could get 2, even 3 touchdowns in this game. I know it could possibly sound crazy to some of you, but Houston is bad versus the run. Cleveland are big favorites. Nick Chubb is a beast. He is 8K, but he's one of my favorite running backs on the entire slate. I don't have him projected up there with the studs for GPP, which I am going to adjust that. I'll probably adjust him over 20 eventually, to be honest with you, the way I love him right now. But yeah, Nick Chubb in this game environment, good matchup. I absolutely love him, especially if he's going to come in at low ownership. Nick Chubb, even though he doesn't get involved in the pass game, and that hurts him a little bit for full point PPR for Draftkings, he's got going to get over 100 yards rushing, and he's going to get in the end zone multiple times. So he's a solid option. He's got crazy upside to me in this game. I mean, he's going to get 25 plus carries. He's going to get in the end zone. He's just a fantastic option. You saw last week against Tampa Bay, which is a solid rushing defense. He got 26 carry, over 100 rushing yards, and got in the end zone. This matchup here is even better. You know what I mean? So this is a fantastic spot for Nick Chubb to absolutely eat here. All right. But that's about it, man. Jamal Williams is in that Detroit Jacksonville game. I'm interested in any parts of that. Uh, Yeah, that's about it. Let's move over to wide receiver because this is the very interesting spot here on this slate. All right, so when you look at overall projection, as you can see, if I sort point per salary, he's probably right there at the top. Amon-Ra St. Brown. If I'm spending up at wide receiver, Amon-Ra's my favorite option, especially if you have Jared Goff, especially if you're getting the Jacksonville side of things, running it back with him. There's multiple reasons why Amon-Ra is a beautiful play here. Um, He's at home in a dome that favors the pass. Amon-Ra gets a incredibly high target share on this Detroit offense. This game should be an absolute shootout. You already like Jacksonville side of things. You got to run it back. So that's another reason why I love that this game, because the correlation works out perfectly, and that's where I spend a lot of my time throughout the week, is finding those spots where the correlation is just beautiful and lineups come together perfectly, getting involved in certain games. And this is the game that I have a lot of interest in this week. At the end of the day, if Jacksonville Detroit game ends up going, 7-14 finish and low scoring and sucks, then so be it. As DFS, sometimes crazy shit happens, but at the end of the day, you look at the numbers, you look at the analytics behind this game, and it screams get involved. Okay, period. Um, Garrett Wilson for the Jets. I talked about liking White a little bit. This is who I like pairing him with right here. Garrett Wilson is the guy who's going to get majority of the targets here. He's going to get heavily targeted. He's only 5'3". It's a good matchup against Minnesota in a game where the game script screams pass heavy for the Jets. They'll be behind. Garrett Wilson's a fantastic option at 5'3". Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. I talked about liking Trevor Lawrence. This right here is why I like Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, Zay Jones is only 4'9". Christian Kirk is an elite targeted receiver. He is a guy getting elite level targets, and he's 6'3". So you're able to get fully involved in some of the best options in this game for everybody's low 7 or under. You know what I mean? Christian Kirk is an absolute stud here in this matchup. Detroit's secondary is the worst in the league. They are horrible. So get involved. Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, both fantastic options. Trevor Lawrence, fantastic option. On the other side, Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, fantastic options. So I love that spot. I loved Garrett Wilson as well. I have Kendall Hinton popping a little bit against Baltimore. He's interesting. I mean, the big underdogs, heavy passing situation. Adam Thielen against the Jets, that's fine. Chris Moore, heavy passing situation. That's why he pops as a value option. If you're going like with some Raiders, running it back with Keenan Allen is a solid option. Not going to have a ton of DK because I just don't think the Rams keep it competitive enough where Seattle really has to throw a lot. They're probably just really going to lean heavily on Kenneth Walker. T. Higgins, especially if Homeboy is still out. This matchup against Kansas City is fantastic, especially if Jamar Chase is still out or severely limited like we're expecting him to be. T. Higgins is going to get a heavy run once again, and going against Kansas City, they're going to be behind and having to throw the ball. It's a fantastic spot here, all right? I absolutely love this spot there for him, and he's once again in play. Mac Hollins at 4'6", another solid matchup against the Chargers. So there's a lot of receivers that I have some interest in, man. I mean, right here at the top of this list, you already have, like, my favorite point per dollar plays. Like, if I go to all, my favorite, like, this is my favorite point per dollar options right here on the slate, right? We have one running back, all right? And then we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. We have those other receiving options, Garrett Wilson, you've got a couple quarterbacks. David Njoku pops for me at 3.9. We'll get to that in a minute. Um, but when it comes to the value and where I'm loving like cheaper plays at this week, outside of Zonovan Knight at running back, that's about it over there that I absolutely love at that price range. On wide receiver, though, there's a lot. Zay Jones, Chris Moore 3-2 even that you could get sneaky with. Garrett Wilson. All these guys are cheap. Kendall Hinton. Mac Hollins. There's some decent options that you could go with for sure. Like some of the spend up options aren't in the best script matchups here. Justin Jefferson at 8.9 is always going to be a solid play. That's a big price tag for this matchup against the Jets. Jets have been a decent secondary. Sauce Gardner's been really good. Um, but Jefferson's another level. So he'll still get his, but am I paying 8.9 for him? Most likely not. Am I paying 8.8 for Tyreek? Most likely not. Devontae Adams against the Chargers, decent matchup, but am I going to pay 8.7? I don't know. Like, most likely not. I mean, so for me, it really sticks out as like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. These guys are like big time options for me, those value-ish range guys. At tight end, Pat Fryermuth is probably my favorite option at 4.3. Foster Moreau and David Njoku are also solid options. David Njoku's obviously going to get a bump with Watson in. So he's going to be a solid option. But the game script screams just a ton of run here. I mean, I just see Cleveland up early, and, it could be nasty. But Foster Moreau is a solid option. Pat Fryermuth has been getting the second highest target share on his offense since Pickett took over. Fryermuth is a fantastic option against Atlanta here at 4.3 in a dome. He is a solid choice. So when it comes to tight end, I've had a lot of Fryermuth, a lot of Moreau, some decent options with Njoku and GPP. I really like him in GPP. Um, Outside of that, that's about it, y'all. I don't have a ton. Oh well, I do want to talk. I do want to talk about one other guy, Brock Wright. So Brock Wright is only 2.8. You guys already know the exposure I love in that Detroit Jacksonville game. And Jacksonville has been bottom in the league versus tight ends as of late. They have been giving it up to tight ends lately, and Brock Wright could get involved here in this one. In what should be a high scoring game at home in Detroit. So he is the main go to guy for Detroit that I would choose when it comes to if I'm spending down. Brock Wright's probably the guy I would go at 2.8. He's definitely interesting, especially if you need to, if it just lands you on perfection for the rest of your lineup, go ahead and save it tight end. Brock Wright gets in the end zone, you're good at 2.8. You know what I mean? You don't need a ton here from Brock Wright. And the matchup is the best matchup you can ask for, and one of the best game environments that I like in on this slate when it comes to pricing and just correlation and everything. So Brock Wright, solid value option I wanted to talk about. When it comes to defense, honestly, y'all, I mean, you got the Ravens, you got the Seahawks. I've been going a lot of Seahawks at 3.6. For me, it's the Ravens and the Seahawks at the top by a good margin. And I like the Seahawks because they're cheaper at 3.6. That's plain and simple. I mean, the Rams are just gutted. No Cup, no Stafford. They're just, yeah. So the Seahawks in this spot, especially if you got Kenneth Walker as well, it kind of correlates to go with defense with a running back because if the defense is doing great, most likely your run game is still going heavy, going strong, and it correlates well playing a defense with a running back. So, but yeah, no matter what, I like the Seahawks defense or the Ravens defense. If I sort point per salary for defenses on the optimizer, you got the Steelers at 2.6 who are popping. They're a talented defense, and they're only 2.6. They are on the road, but they're decent. Um, but yeah, that's about it, y'all. All right, hopefully I was able to answer all of your questions. I'm about to do the NBA High Five video for tonight's slate. We have been absolutely dominating NBA, man. Let's just keep it going. We've had a fantastic week, a fantastic couple weeks straight. It's been great. So let's go at the top of contest once again for NBA. We got college football tomorrow. Do we got college football tomorrow? Hold on a second. Do we have college football tomorrow? Okay, let's see. Yeah, we have 8 games tomorrow. So we will be playing college football. and get into that money as well. All NFL members get an exposure to that. I'll be adding more prize picks on the site as well for NBA and NFL today. So let's get this money, y'all. Thank you guys for joining me as always. Y'all have a great weekend, and I'm out. Peace.